What's going on, everybody? One of the biggest issues that I see in this whole world of AI is that everyone knows, hey, AI is super capable, it can help with X, Y, and Z, but I'm not sure how it can help with my specific use case. And your specific use case might be something for your job, it might be something for your business, or it might be something for your life. And I've been doing a ton of business audits lately and basically just telling business owners, hey, here's how you can implement AI into your business to cut costs, save time, or improve the bottom line. And I just thought it would be really useful to make a video showing how we can think about AI solving problems. So regardless of which of those three scenarios you are, business, job, or life, you can have a framework to think about using AI to replace a bottleneck, essentially, regardless of what that bottleneck is. And for the example of this video, we're going to focus on businesses, but you can take this framework and extrapolate it to your life, to your job, to your kids' homework, whatever the thing is. And so I put together a nice little flow chart that I want to go through. And basically, I just want to show you the different steps that I think about as I'm auditing a business. And this is really important to understand because, we've quite literally helped businesses save tens of thousands of dollars. We've helped businesses make tens of thousands of dollars. And we have, I hate to say it, but we've replaced employees that were costing hundreds of thousands of dollars because we were able to build AI solutions that essentially removed the bottleneck that the business was facing. And so the first thing that I do when I'm thinking about an AI solution is just that. I got to identify what the bottlenecks are. And so when we think about bottlenecks, if we think about, I'm going to draw you a little illustration here. So if you think about the way that a faucet flows, let's just say, and I'm using my mouse, so this is not going to be pretty, but let's just say this is a faucet. Oh my gosh, that is just so terrible. It's so terrible that I'm honestly just going to have to redo that. Okay. Why is that thing so big? Anyways, just bear with me here. So just think about a faucet and the way that a faucet flows. Let's pretend this is a faucet. Perfect. And each part of the faucet, there's different parts of the faucet basically of the flow. Okay. And so a bottleneck is when one part of the faucet gets bogged down. And because of this, it cannot flow to the rest of the business. And so by definition, business is simply a matter of identifying bottlenecks, knocking that bottleneck down, identifying another one, knock that one down. Very often it's customer acquisition and lead acquisition. Sometimes it's customer retention. There's a million different things that these bottlenecks could be. But the first thing we have to do is identify, where is this happening? Where is the bottleneck breaking down? And so a good place to start is just, where do you wait? Where do you rework work done? Where do you copy and paste? Basically, where is something that you're either spending way too much time on, way too much money on, or your employees are? And so when we think about it like that, it makes it pretty easy because we all know things that we're doing that are very redundant, very annoying, and not very helpful. And something that actually helps a lot is I will have business owners create a time log. I want you to log every single piece of work that you do from sun up to sundown. And I want to analyze this over the course of 2 weeks. And let's see, what are you hitting way more than once? What has way too high of a frequency? Same with employees. We can do this with employees and have them audit their time, and we can understand what's taking up a lot of time, resources, or maybe just causing a lot of stress on the business. Now from there, what we want to do is we want to think about how AI could solve this problem. So we'll go with a specific example here in a second, but we need to map bottlenecks to AI patterns. So we need to classify what the problem is. We need to predict how the AI would solve it. And for each idea, we basically just need to have required inputs and outputs. So let's say, for example, let me think of a good example here. Let's say that there is a business. Actually, I can just give you a real world example that we made. So let's say there's a business that is essentially a software that helps other businesses schedule their employees. Okay, so the way that it works right now is this software is able to analyze different metrics from the businesses they partner with, in particular nurses. And with nurses, there's a lot of compliance issues and a lot of regulation issues. And so we need to figure out how to make their scheduling software more efficient. And so what we did is we wanted to figure out where the issue was and where the bottleneck was. And the bottleneck happened to be that people would get burnt out because they were overworked, so their overtime pay was too high. And so the businesses were paying out way too much money in overtime, which is hurting their profit, which makes it a bad customer experience for the businesses that are partnered with the scheduling software. And so to make a very long story short, what we did is instead of having 10 people manage spreadsheets, we used logic and intelligence to automatically assign people whether, we're basically able to see, this person's overworked, underworked, so let's schedule them here, 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 and here. And so what this did is it reduced overtime by 75%, and it increased profit margins for the partners of this business by 10 to 20%, which in turn increases their customer retention. They stay with that business forever. So the way that we thought about it is, what is the bottleneck? The bottleneck is scheduling. Okay, so how could AI potentially help that? Well, we can use an LLM, specifically a reasoning model, to think deeply about these problems and analyze the solutions. And then we can also use RAG to see historical patterns and historical data of the scheduling and where it goes wrong. But before that, we need to see if there's a software that exists. And I always recommend this. So if you identify a bottleneck, is there a software that exists that solves this problem? And if so, that's pretty much it. All you got to do is you have to go sign up for the software and you use it. And that's why there's an explosion of AI softwares, because there are so many use cases for them. You can search vendor marketplaces, checkmate.com, Zapier, N8N. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that you can get an AI implementation into your business. So I meant to mention that earlier, but basically, does a software exist that I can use to solve this problem? Okay, great. Well, anyways, more likely than not, there's not going to be a solution. And so you have a couple of things you can do here. You can try to automate it with Make, Zapier, or N8N. These work pretty well depending on what the problem is. Getting a little bit more custom, and this is what we do a lot of, is LLM plus RAG for knowledge tasks. So just as an example, if you go to Instantly is an incredible software, and you ask them a question, well, they have trained their chatbots on their RAG system, and their RAG is connected to an LLM. So basically the way that it works is, let me just make sure you guys can see my screen here. So the way that it works is there is an LLM call. So we'll just say LLM. And normally what would happen in a traditionally fine-tuned model is LLM to output. I'll just put out. But what's going to happen with a RAG model is RAG is trained on data. So the LLM is going to parse the RAG agent, which is just retrieval augmented generation. And so what that is basically a vector database of documents, sales calls, Slack messages, whatever data you want to put in there. And it can reference this before it gives the output. And the reason that this is so effective for chatbots is because it's way more accurate. If I install ChatGPT on your website and I ask a question about what happens when, a very specific use case related to your software occurs, it might be able to search the web and give a decent answer, but number one, it's going to take a while. Number two, it's probably not going to be accurate. With RAG, it's going to be very accurate. So that's a lot of what we do. Now, we also do custom agents for multi-step workflows. And you're seeing a lot of this now with things like Claude Code, Manus, agents working together in tandem. Grok even has it with Super Grok. And this is where basically you can fire off, smaller versions of these AI tools that work together. So maybe one tool is very focused on spreadsheet data. One tool is very focused on customer communication. One tool is very focused on best practices and documentation for your business. These three agents work separately, and then they come together in tandem to create the output, which is the response to the customer. Okay, so that's another way to think about it. So basically what we have is what are the bottlenecks? And there's more to this, by the way. What are the bottlenecks? How can AI solve it? Does software exist? If not, what's the custom solution? Okay, now from there, we want to talk about our buy versus build score. So basically, we want to think about, should we buy a solution or should we build a solution? You can do this on a score of 0 to 3. So if there's 3 of these that get checked, you're probably going to need to build it. So it's fit to the need. So do we have a need? Is there a software fit for it? Okay, let's just say there is, for example. Check, okay? Is there a lot of integration effort? Is it a heavy lift to integrate into the business? No, okay. Is the software, does it have good data and security compliance? Yes. Okay, great. How about, is the cost reasonable to operate? Yes. Okay, well, in this case, it scores at least a 3 on the buy solution, so we can simply go and buy it. However, as you probably know, shouldn't have done that. I knew that was going to happen. Okay, I'm not going to be able to erase that. But as you probably know, it's not going to be as simple as just finding software solutions most of the time, so you're really going to have to go in there and buy it. But you can think about it like this: the fit, the integration, data security, total cost, time to value, pick the highest total, so on and so forth. These are all ways that you can think about integrating AI solutions into your business. So the 0 to 3 method really is what I like to do. And what you'll see is, more likely than not, the buy will not be supported, and so you'll need to build. And from there, when you build, that's where things get really interesting, and that's where you should book a call with me, to be honest, because we're experts at it. But basically, let's go through it. So first things first, you have to put together a pilot plan. Hey, here's the problem. Here's the solution. Here's how we're going to build it. Here's how long it's going to take. Here's the KPIs that we're aiming for to see this be a success. So that's the problem statement. The success metric is, like I just said, the KPIs. How are we gauging and measuring the success? Who's the owner? Is it the CEO that's owning this? Is it Integri, my business, that's owning it? Who is in control here? What are the deadlines? We need clear deadlines and clear deliverables for this to happen. What users are we going to use in pilot? So usually a business will have favorite customers or customers that have been around for a long time that they have the great relationships with, that they can plug into this pilot and use them as sort of a test and an experiment. And you can position it to the customer as, hey, this is an opportunity to beta test our new feature. It should improve your results by X, Y, and Z. Where are the data sources? This is probably one of the most important parts of the entire equation. What data sources are we going to use for this build? Because as I just explained, data is everything in these custom AI solutions. What about safeguards and fallbacks? Well, this is interesting. We built a solution for a law firm recently, and one of the biggest issues was that they kept having AI hallucinate. So what we had to do is build an is it true model. So in this scenario, the way that the is it true model works is LLM gets pinged. Instead of straight to the output, what it does is it goes to RAG, and this is where those multi-agents come in. Okay, so it goes to RAG, and then before it goes to output, it goes to true/false. So basically, it'll generate an output. It'll go to the true/false agent, and that agent's going to run a secondary RAG check to see if the answer is true. And if so, then it will give output, which is the reply to the customer. And by the way, this is all the example of a chatbot. I mean, there's a million different examples we can make, but we're doing a chatbot. If it's false, well, then it's got to go back to the drawing board, and we train it to say, if it can't find the answer, I cannot find that answer right now. Would you like me to create a support ticket for you? So you don't have to, answer every question, and especially if it's wrong, but that's what LLMs will do, as we know and we experience. So when you're thinking about the ROI, it's time and money, really, is what it comes down to. So is this going to save hours per month? And what is our hourly cost? Is it going to help with errors avoided? And if we do, what's the cost of not avoiding those errors? Is it going to lift our revenue? Pretty straightforward. If so, how much is it going to lift our revenue? Now, of course, how much is the tool and build cost? So you need to figure this out, and you need to compare it against these 3 variables. And if this cost is less than, if the tool cost is less than the 3 KPIs, then the project's a green light. We should move forward with it, and we should absolutely do it. And so that's why, anytime I'm building a solution for someone, I'm dead focused on what is the ROI, what is the return on their investment. And this is really a pretty simple way. It looks like I got blurred out here. A pretty simple way to just think about, how can I add AI to my business, life, or my job? And you can do this as an individual. It doesn't have to be business or work related. It could be really with anything. You can do it with fitness. You can do it with whatever. But this is the framework I use. I have worked with many, many different companies auditing their businesses and proposing solutions. And this is exactly what I do. And it helps them out tremendously. So I thought that this video would be really valuable, but what I need from you is to leave a comment about first you got to subscribe, but then you got to leave a comment about what is a bottleneck you're facing in your life. It could be business, it could be work, it could be just regular life. And I'll create a video about what the solution to that problem is. I'm trying to crowdsource engagement here. So, do me a favor, leave me a comment, definitely subscribe. If you want to work with me or have an audit of your business, simply just go to my website, integri.biz, and I'd be glad to help you out. But this is what I got for you guys today. I hope it was helpful. Really appreciate your time, and I'll see you in the next one.